Oh, so you work in comms. What does that mean? Oh, I see. You write press releases, manage social media, make things that people sort of notice, but don't really care about. And you try and answer that, you struggle because the audience just isn't there, or the audience doesn't care. This episode is about where the assumption comes from, why people don't think comms does anything, why they disregard it in the first place. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about how this assumption about comms will cost brands and businesses so much. If you are a brand, a business, a creator, this is a place for you to level up your strategic thinking. More about that later. Let's get straight into it. Comms gets lumped into marketing, even with PR. And I think I just did it, or with media relations and then posting on Instagram. It's conflation overload. But each one of those conflations strips another layer of the comms function because there are many layers. Now, marketing is great. Marketing sells. But you see, comms does this invisible thing, visible for those who know, if you know, you know, in that it builds the conditions necessary for that selling to be possible. They are related. Comms is related to all of those things, but they're not the same things. So, what do I want to cover here? This bundling happens inside organizations. It happens outside of organizations. Comms can report into marketing. Comms can actually report into a lot of disciplines. And essentially, then comms is treated as some kind of a content production unit. The comms function is essentially not given a seat at the table and can sometimes be the first budget cut or the first sort of overlooked discipline. It's not required. We can chat GPT it, or in the past, it's just fluff. There's also this spin association with comms. Where does it come from? It comes from political communications. It comes from crisis management when it's done really badly. The visible cases that we all know of, where comms is essentially used to obscure what's actually going on rather than clarify it for audiences and those who are interested. And so it misses the actual thing all the time, which is that those cases are essentially where comms has failed or is being misused. It's not an evidence of what comms is. The same logic would perhaps discredit the legal department if the lawyers were doing a crap job. So when comms is done ethically with integrity, it looks different. But then that version doesn't get any airtime because the results are there, but it's not screaming, this looks good because the comms did its job. You can look at so many examples of powerful and strong brands who are doing great work. And I'm telling you, it's because they've got really good comms. There's also this gender dimension of communications. Comms has been predominantly a female profession for decades. I think it's because of the critical thinking. We'll get to that. But it's essentially then devalued as a function because of misogyny. Hello. And essentially, then it's seen as something that is less worthy. But this isn't the whole explanation. This is just part of the explanation. What happens with predominantly female fields is that they get labeled as soft. And what soft skills, what does it mean when you unpack soft skills? Let's get to what that dismissal of comms actually costs a brand, a business. Comms is used to diagnose really critical elements, areas of a brand or a business, its reputation, and to then anticipate the consequence or even impact what the consequence will be. Organizations that treat comms as an afterthought are examples of what goes wrong. It happens all the time. We see this in high profile reputational crises with celebrities. The comms is invisible, but the PR spin is there and they're trying to work it with legal, and it's just a disaster because they tend to use short-term social media bubble thinking rather than really taking in everything, all 7 of my strategic zones, all of those things that intersect with each other, zeitgeist awareness, your stakeholder mapping, all of that. I have playlists dedicated to each of my 7 strategic zones. Comms will anticipate. Comms will do what systems thinking does, which is why I was so happy to begin studying it at postgraduate level. I'm in my research dissertation phase, coming to the end. It's the last leg, very last leg now. It gave me the language for what I do in comms. It's that real systems analysis, that massive breadth and depth of thought of that strategic thinking. And the brands and the institutions that use comms, they function really well. The ones who don't, they're not functioning so well. They're just not. There are so many examples from my 25 years of comms and media that essentially have made very concrete for me why comms is so essential and how it can make or break a brand or a business. Let me give you one tiny example. Back in the day when I was based at the Financial Times, it's actually where I first started in public relations. Actually, it's called comms. The function was called comms. And there was a period of time where, if you remember, a lot of the print newspapers were going from the broadsheet size to the smaller size. And what I found so interesting at that time is that the FT did not compromise on its sizing. It continued, and as it still does now, on that sort of broadsheet sized paper. And this is going to be my opinion and definitely not the opinion of the FT or anyone who was working there at the time. And it was quite some time ago. But I kept an eye on these developments. I kept an eye on the brand. I wasn't there for all 25 years of my comms experience. It was mainly at the start, the first few years. And I'd moved on since then, went to other papers, other functions of the media, etc., etc. What I saw as an outsider afterwards, having been inside, is that they were clearly advised well. They understood that they were not only a visual brand, but a practical one as well. So they continued with the pink paper, the broadsheet, not squeezing everything. Really important information, remember, really critical information for its readers and its audiences. To try and condense that into smaller sizing would be not only a brand disaster, that would be a disaster for comms advice. And there would have been, I'm sure, clearly other disciplines and practitioners coming into that round table to decide, what they were going to do in this era of people not buying papers. You've got to make it practical. You've got to make it easy to consume. So as an outsider, what I saw is, okay, so they went the ft.com route. They added magazines. They really doubled, tripled down on what it is that they offer rather than compromising in terms of trying to compete with others and enter that space of, we are going to stand out like this in this space, this readership space, but we're not going to bow down. We're not going to depart from what it is we really know to be true, and that is we have real quality and value to offer in this quintessential traditional medium. We will preserve it, but we will add to it. So they added magazines, they've got ft.com, and so that is a lasting brand decision, which I think has done well for them. And comms would have been definitely a part of that decision making. I know this because I've seen this kind of a call being made by comms directors, by comms managers, comms professionals in different brands and different spaces. Because comms will be engaged with multiple stakeholders across the business for the brand, and they'll have a lot of insight to bring. They'll understand what the different stakeholder and audience segments are and what it is they want, where to gamble, where not to gamble. So the advisory function of comms is really quite crucial. People, again, don't realize that. What they think is, oh, social media posts, bit of fluff here, bit of fluff there. Social media posts, by the way, is not fluff. So the dismissal, unfortunately, it's not random. It definitely is structural, cultural, historical. But the people doing the dismissing are making strategic errors. And then they need a crisis comms person, or they need to go to an LLM to get generic advice instead of tailored advice that actually matters, advice that fits their brand, advice that is taking into account all of the different dynamics, the interrelationships, the interdependencies of the brand and of the business. And comms as a function does that. It does a zoom out, it does a zoom in. It has its tentacles in all these different areas, which is why I broke down my 7 strategic zones to be the zones that they are. And you see the playlist available for everything. It's really important to understand that any brand, any business has all of these spheres that you've got to keep an eye on. And comms as a function does that. It's why in a reputational crisis, a celebrity will know, well, their team will know how much to frame the issue around what's going on currently, because the comms person will know what that celebrity's existing audience cares about, but also that comms person will know what is currently being said about that celebrity, not just because they're monitoring social media and they've got media monitoring set up, but they'll be able to extract the meaning, what's going to form a critical mass of opinion, what is the most significant and substantial sentiment, who are the voices that really should be paid a lot more attention to, because other media outlets will also be doing the same thing and amplify certain messages, amplify certain talking points. How to then stitch that together, how to create a web of sentiment that's going to be impacting the brand, the legal side of things. There are so many different almost lenses that you would need to apply to any dilemma, to any issue for a brand, and iterate on it constantly. You've got to keep an eye on things, you've got to monitor it. And that's what comms people do. They're designed to do that. It's almost like you're an investigator, you're a detective, you are a consultant, you are a writer, you are a social media user, you have your business head on as well. And that's why I chose to create this channel, because as a creator, as a brand, as a business, I wear all these different hats, and comms has allowed me to do that because I do that within the comms profession as a practitioner, as a chartered one, but especially bringing in a systems analysis and the systems thinking into it, because systems thinking does this. Looking at dilemmas, issues, problem solving with a systems lens allows you to do this zoom out to see which dots should be joining. Doits should be joining. Which of the dots you should be joining, and to make it meaningful for that next step, for that next decision, for that call. We should say this not just because the evidence and the data suggests this, but this is my interpretation of that evidence of that data. As a comms person, the interpretation and then recommendation you are making is not just rooted in the evidence, but your ability to join dots, your ability to spot what's meaningful, what will matter, where should we triple down, and your ability to do this synthesis and do this analysis and bring forth recommendations and execute powerfully for your brands and for your businesses. It's honestly quite a magical profession. You learn so much from it. And for me, somebody who is passionate about systems thinking, and since studying my master's and coming to the end of it, it's given me the language that helps me make sense of how my brain works as a creative, as an academic, as an intellectual, as an artist, all of these different things. But also, I discovered, I do so much of this in comms. I do so much of this in my analysis for my current affairs channel. So I hope this video and the upcoming videos provides you not only with an explanation of what is comms, but also help you to sprinkle it into your brand, your business, your creator world. And also, if you are considering a career in comms, to understand why an LLM cannot completely replace what you do, because your advice, the synthesis, the analysis can only be outsourced so far. Somebody's going to have to make a call, and then the decision is going to be on their shoulders, and you can't blame it on an LLM. You've still got to make uh, a really good call for these reputational crises, these decisions, these brand building decisions. And knowing the brand, it's not enough. Knowing so much more about the brand's audience, the demographics, the setting, the space, the market space that your brand operates in, and how that's changing and what it expects from you. There are so many different dimensions to brand building and business that comms has a really good handle on. So I hope I've sold comms to you, and I'd love to hear from you in the comment section. It's been wonderful to have your time and attention. It really helps if you subscribe. We all know a majority of people consuming content, video watching videos, listening to podcasts, etc., haven't actually subscribed. So for those of you who haven't, please do, and those of you who have, welcome back. Thank you so much for your support, and I'll see you in the next one.